Hello there, and welcome to Zero XP. We are a show that sits down twice a month to talk about games, and one game series in particular, Fable. We also, as we are on this week, strive to bring you several bonus episodes discussing a variety of game topics spanning recent news to reflection and speculation concerning past and current game generations. I'm John, and I'm sitting here with my co-host, who is the heart and soul of our show, Patrick.
Hello.
You can find us across all major podcast platforms. If we're not on the platform of your choice, please let us know. You can also find an enhanced video version of each show on YouTube by searching for Zero XP Webcast.
Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. I respond to all of them.
If you would like to contact us directly, you can by emailing us at zeroxppodcast@gmail.com or hitting us up on Twitter at ZeroXPWebcast. On this week's show, we're going to be talking about the best deal in video games, Xbox Game Pass. We're going to run down how it started and where we think it is and where it's going. So let's get into it. Patrick, what do you think? Xbox Game Pass Ultimate.
I love it.
Best game deal in games?
Oh, easily.
So let's backtrack just a little bit to when it all kind of started, which was, Xbox or Microsoft announcing Xbox Game Pass.
Mm-hmm.
I was intrigued by it when they first announced it, but I was a little unsure of how it was going to work. Obviously we got more details over time, and looking at the game lineup starting out, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, luckily, I think they were pretty much doing 2-week free subscriptions at the time.
Yeah, and I think they still had the thing where if you paid $1, you'd get like a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I looked through there, and most of them were games that I had gotten through Games with Gold at the time.
Yep.
And
yeah.
It was. I know it was new, but it was very underwhelming. I immediately made sure that it didn't continue, or it didn't start taking money out of my account as a subscription.
It wasn't reoccurring.
No.
Right, and I did the exact same thing, admittedly so. When it first started, Patrick hit the nail on the head. I started looking through the games, and while there were some, nice bright spots, they were mainly the ID at Xbox games, and, there's some great content there, but for the most part, it was comprised of games that we had already been given, and if you were an Xbox Live subscriber, they were games that were given away as part of the Games with Gold service. So there wasn't really any benefit of subscribing to it if you had been a member of the service for that long. It was really kind of underwhelming, and I honestly thought that the experiment might not last based off that.
I thought it might be one of those things that they canceled in a year or two afterwards, because I didn't even think it was a $5 service, honestly.
No, not at the time. Because actually, to kind of not get into it, because we're going to talk about it later, but at the time, EA had already been doing their own game service on Xbox with EA Access, and they were $5 a month.
Yeah.
And for those $5 a month, while you weren't getting games day and date or anything, you did have access to a very large library of quality games for half the price.
It was $5 a month, and I'm pretty sure it was $30 a year if you paid up front, right?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
So it was a substantially
cheap.
better deal.
So, comparing the two at the time, I actually had a subscription to EA Access for a bit there, and, I was fine keeping that until we turned a corner on Game Pass. And to me, there was a very definitive choice that Microsoft made. And do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, they said that all first-party games moving forward would be available day one.
Yep. And that was right before Sea of Thieves launched, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I remember you sent me a text about it, and I think my response was something along the lines of, they're making sense now.
Yep. Yeah, it was definitively one of those things where I still wasn't sure at the time I was going to wind up subscribing to it for a long period.
Yeah.
Because, let's face it, there for a while, the cadence of Xbox One first-party titles that were being released weren't exactly, boisterous. They were few and far in between.
I mean, it was a good decision that made sense, but it didn't immediately make me subscribe and continue to subscribe because this was before they went on their shopping spree.
Exactly. I did not subscribe, honestly, I believe until Sea of Thieves came out because I was intrigued by it. Before that, I was still kind of waiting and watching to see what was there. And at that point, they actually hadn't even added their previous library of games to it. So we could see the wheels at that point start churning. Like they were, moving in the right direction anyways. But I didn't know if that was something that was going to be a permanent decision. That was one of the things that's kind of astounded me about it, is I thought maybe they would do this to get people in on the service and then pull the plug.
Yeah, I think we had that discussion before, and I was pretty well always of the mindset that would be the worst thing that they could ever do.
Oh, yeah, because people would instantly unsubscribe.
Because, I mean, once they made that choice that first-party games were day one moving forward, I'm like, this is a model that people can get behind. It can make games cheaper in a way. If you think there's 3 games that you want that year from Microsoft, or even still 2, plus the other stuff, it already makes financial sense.
Exactly. Yeah, at the time it was $120 a year, and if they had 2 games that came out $60 a pop, you paid for those 2 games, and you got all the bonus games that came along with it.
Granted, you don't own anything.
Exactly. But let's fast forward a little bit more and get into the really good stuff, because at this point we've hit it's just a great time to be on the Xbox platform.
Yeah.
Because not only now do we have the Xbox library, if you're a PC gamer, you get the PC Game Pass to go along with it, and you get all of your first-party stuff as well as the library and catalog of things that have come previously, but they have done a really great job of going out and getting some high-profile games to put on the service as well that you have access to.
Yeah. I want to say the most recent Devil May Cry had, 4 months afterwards?
I feel like that was the big one for me, too. Yeah. I'm not even a big Devil May Cry fan or player, but it was like when they announced that, I'm like, oh, they're really serious about making this something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one was a big shock because it was like, and it had sold pretty well too. On top of it, it's not
I think it was the highest selling Devil May Cry type.
It's not like it just flat out.
It was at least highly rated.
Yeah. I thought I read. I could be wrong, but I thought I read it. It sold pretty well. Like they were happy with it.
Oh yeah.
So it wasn't one of those where it's like, oh no, we need to make cash off of this fast.
I think Capcom looked at it as a return to form for the series. It kind of put it back on the map.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, people are paying roughly, on the MSRP is $15 a month US. And if you know where to look, you can find sales, especially this time of the year. Yeah. And normally about June, kind of when E3 would have hit.
Seems like around every 6 months.
Yeah. Where you can, I think on average I pay under $10 or right around $10 a month.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable what you get for that value.
Normally under 25 for 3.
Yes, for sure. So, the thing that I think has really caught me off guard about Game Pass is it's encouraged me to play games that I wouldn't normally buy.
Yeah. Those games that you hear a few good things about, and when they tend to get them on the service, it's a lot easier to just jump in than being like, that looks kind of good, but $10-15 for the one game, you're not sure, but if it's already there, I've discovered a few games that way.
Well, and what's it going to do? It doesn't hurt you to download it and check it out because, you're not paying anything extra for it. All it does is cost you your time.
And it really helps with a lot of those shorter games because you're like, oh, I don't have as much spare time right now, and some of those appeal more.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I've actually hit I've hit a fairly regular kind of routine of I'll play like a big scale game, something that's, multiple 20 plus hours or whatever, something along those lines. And then I immediately go to Game Pass after that, look for something small, something that is maybe less combat involved.
Tetris Effect.
Oh, man. We can talk about some Tetris Effect. I love that game. But it's just it's incredible because it allows you to do that, whereas I've never been somebody who bought every game, especially digitally, because I want to own the games that I would generally go out and buy in case I didn't like them. I could trade it with somebody or, something along those lines. But Game Pass has kind of changed that for me. So let's get into what are some games that you've played, Patrick, that you might not have played that turned out to be some, really awesome games.
Tetris Effect.
I would have played Tetris Effect. I don't know how much I would have paid for Tetris Effect, but yeah,
I haven't finished it, but I believe I'm pronouncing it right. I'm going off the top of my head. Spiritfarer.
Yes.
I believe you beat it, right?
I did not beat it yet.
Okay.
So funny story behind that. My son decided he wanted to check out the game.
Oh.
And I love him to death, and I'm not the parent that gets incredibly angry at him for doing things like this. He's 4 years old. And he wanted to play the game that Dad was playing, and he spent all of my resources.
Oh.
And I wound up with something like 5 orchards and some things that I don't need and I'm not going to use. And it kind of derailed my gameplay.
Time to start over.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I had already put in, several. I think I was probably about halfway through the game. So I just haven't quite jumped back into it. But it's a beautiful game, and it's a blast.
Yeah.
It's very somber if
Yeah.
you're looking for something that's not too intense.
Having something like, which I play a lot of, is New Super Lucky's Tale.
Oh,
because
yeah.
My daughter, she's 3, and she loves, she's always like, can we play Fox? Can we play Fox? And we play through the same Halloween level over and over. But I do like having stuff like that on Game Pass that is more family friendly. I'd like to see more of it. Because, she enjoys it, and she's started to pick up the controller, which I'm incredibly happy about.
Sure.
She's learning to move directions. She's actually really good with the buttons. It's more the movement that she struggles with.
It's funny. I think with my son, it was kind of the opposite. He was good with the direction, but the buttons and timing of things he wasn't great at when he started. And then, it was now he can sit there, and Lucky's Tale specifically was where he started, so that's kind of funny. Because he liked watching things like Mario and platformers, and it went from he was basically just running around, running into things, thinking it was hilarious, to now he can beat levels and play through a game. And I wasn't quite ready for him to make that jump yet, but I look forward to months from now or whenever when we can sit down. I think we started playing Jurassic Park, the Lego game, together. And it's fun. Obviously he's not great at solving puzzles and things like that, but it's something that we can do when it's a rainy day specifically, or as the weather gets colder. It's something we can do that has his attention and my attention, and we can do it together.
She just gets excited when she runs Fox into the water.
Oh yeah. Well, that was his thing. He started off by running Fox off a cliff.
Yeah.
So, or Lucky off of a cliff.
Boy, he doesn't sound so lucky.
Nope. I've got to admit, Sea of Thieves is what drew me into Game Pass. It's the thing that I wanted to check out the most when they launched it on there, because I like Rare. I thought the game looked beautiful. I didn't know if it would be up my alley. And while I, fell away from it over time, I probably put, well over 100 hours into it when it first launched. I really enjoyed it just from the co-op aspect of it. And then personally, there's just been so many different things. Access to Ori, which Ori's a beautiful game. 2 Point Hospital's one I've been checking out recently. Yeah. I'm a sucker for Sims.
I haven't done that one yet, but I really want to.
Well,
especially on xCloud.
And now they've added Planet Coaster, which I'm just thrilled to get into. Yeah. I haven't done it yet because I've been playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but I think that's going to be my in-between
That's
game.
One of those titles that came out of nowhere and really surprised me. And admittedly, I don't think I would have bought the new Battletoads, or at least waited until it got really cheap. That was a nice one to have day one, and that was one people were getting kind of negative on, and overall I feel like it was mostly positive.
Yeah, I actually, it's another one I didn't finish because I tend to bounce around on games a lot, especially concerning our show.
But Game Pass, it's difficult not to.
I loved what I played on it.
Yeah.
And I eventually plan to go back and fix it. It's a good brawler. It reminds me of, obviously the original Battletoads, but, Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, things like that. it's just fun. There are some parts that are overly difficult, but that's kind of on par for the brand.
Yeah.
But I mean, I thought they did a really great job of reinventing it and kind of giving it that Saturday morning cartoon feel.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was an unexpected touch, and it's actually a funny game.
So, one, I want to point out that if you haven't checked it out on Game Pass, or checked it out originally when it was released, because it's probably going to be the only one we're ever going to get, but please, if you have not done so, check out Sunset Overdrive. Mm-hmm. It is an underrated game. It is made by the same company that Insomniac, who made Ratchet and Clank, and more recently are so being well regarded for making Marvel's Spider-Man and Miles Morales.
Yeah. I mean, Sony does own that IP, but I don't see them.
I'd be surprised unless they really wanted to be mean, because that would be really mean, because I really would like a sequel to that, and I don't have a PlayStation.
Yeah.
But it was really underrated, and it's just a good time. It's a good game. It's very tongue-in-cheek. The humor is wonderful. That's one that I actually played before I had Game Pass, but now is a good time to check it out if you can.
Yeah, I think that one really suffered from all the negative Xbox One press at the time.
It really did.
Yeah.
It came out on a console that was dead in the water at the time, and without having an install base, not that many people got their hands on it. And actually, even if you don't
Titanfall suffered from that too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Also, I think being a shallow game, Titanfall was ahead of its time when you look at it, because Titanfall, while, I mean, like the mechanics were solid and people seemed to enjoy it, there was a big backlash because it didn't have a campaign alongside it, and now nobody blinks an eye at that.
Yeah.
Now it's the norm. But when it launched, that was a big story.
And for them, it made sense because they were a small developing studio, where some of these others that are doing it now are bigger studios.
But, I mean, other games that, I might not have given the time of day to, After Party was a good play, if you haven't played that.
What Remains of Edith Finch?
Oh, that's one that I definitely played through Game Pass.
If you haven't played that, it's, 2 hours, I want to say?
Yeah, and it's well worth your time.
Play it. Make sure you're in a good headspace.
Yeah, because it's grim.
Yeah, it's set with me stronger than probably any game has in a while. I mean, I enjoyed it. I'd like to see more games like it, I'll say that.
Yeah, some of the smaller games are just really wonderful with what you're getting with the service, and it's totally worth just giving them the time to see if it's something that you can find yourself enjoying. Games like River Bond, games like, I mean, for me personally, Minecraft Dungeons is another game that's great to play, especially if you got family and friends, that I don't know that I would have bothered with by myself or that I would have bought, but I mean, playing through it on Game Pass, it's a blast. And when you really get going with it, it's a really pretty game. So, I mean, those are just a few of the things that we've kind of looked at. But let's talk about what's currently going on with Game Pass. Obviously, we've started a new game generation with the Xbox Series S and X out. So we're kind of looking ahead, but before we got too far ahead, we got hit with a major announcement in September, and it's now come to fruition, as we talked about earlier with EA Access and how, that was a pretty good value for what it was. They've included all of that in our Game Pass lineup.
Yeah, that was a big surprise. I did not see that coming at all whatsoever.
No, it didn't double, obviously, the service, but, it added, 60-plus games?
It added a lot that they were lacking as far as more casual...
titles.
Yeah, sports titles, more casual-style games with the PopCap backlog.
Yep. Peggle, Plants vs. Zombies,
Zuma.
things like that. Yeah. Yeah, it really filled in some gaps in the library of Game Pass.
And added some more older titles that Xbox didn't have.
Oh, yeah. Up until recently when we found out that they are officially doing the remaster, it gave you some great RPGs on top of that. With, the Dragon Age series.
Mass Effect.
Yep. And, sorry, that's where I was going, and then I got lost on Dragon Age. But it's... That edition alone, combined with the first-party stuff from Microsoft... And then,
which really hasn't paid off very much so far, honestly. I don't mean that, negatively. I'm saying, the future is a lot brighter than the past as far as that goes.
And right now the present is pretty solid.
Yeah.
No, I get what you're saying, because I mean, realistically, the highest profile game, I think personally that's hit Game Pass would be like Gears 5.
Yeah.
And maybe Master Chief Collection, because that's
that was still before that was still before Game Pass. Master Chief Collection.
Oh yeah, okay. As far as Hope,
I guess I mean like more like
games that
releasing
debuted
day one.
on it.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. So for sure, Gears 5 is probably the biggest to date as far as dropping day and date on the system itself.
Yeah, and then maybe Outer Worlds.
Yeah, but I wouldn't consider that a high profile title.
Depends on who you are. I mean, yeah, it's not a high profile, but I mean, I guess that's what I'm saying is that like there hasn't been that many so far, but there's going to be a ton of them going forward.
Of course, with the back catalog fleshing out the way that it is with EA Access, then the first-party lineup from Microsoft, and now what is going to be their first-party lineup with, Elder Scrolls and Fallout and all of those games, which had already appeared on Game Pass. What was that?
Oh, Fable.
Oh, well, yes. But I'm just talking about the stuff that they picked up with Bethesda specifically. The library is pretty unbelievable. I mean, it really is a great value. Like I said, you can generally find it for under $10 a month in doing that. I mean, currently, the way that it looks, they had done their conference in July, and they had, was it 22 games that they announced were going to come out day and date on Game Pass?
Yep.
Yeah,
which that was the thing is watching that conference, there was a lot of good stuff to take away, and then at the end they were like, oh, this is all coming to Game Pass day one. It's like, that just really amped up everything.
Just turned another corner. So on the horizon, I think you've really been looking forward to the Medium.
I guess that's not one I'm as excited about, but I do think it's going to be the first Series XS exclusive, or I guess the biggest one that's going to be not on the previous generation, it seems like.
You won't be able to play it on Xbox
It looks
One.
Interesting, but it fits that genre that they don't have as much as far as Xbox goes.
Yeah, they don't have a Resident Evil and, style game first
I mean,
party.
It looks
I guess technically
pretty,
they have the Evil Within first party now.
Yeah, they do actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks good. I don't know how it's going to be lengthwise. I'm just interested to see how it turns out and what people think about it.
Well, I'll be honest, I'm not a big horror game player. I like scary movies, but I think that's because they're 2 hours and I could be done with it. I don't like the intensity of a game that creeps me out for a long.
You're not a Resident Evil and VR kind of guy.
You know what? I love the idea of it, but I don't want to play 10 hours of something like that. That's it might be a bit much for me. But so even if the Medium is a under 10-hour game, I think that's kind of right in my wheelhouse to keep me interested. Anything over that, I start to wane. Now, depending on what kind of games, I may be in the minority there. But if you prefer a 60-hour scare fest, then maybe it will be longer. But I don't need it to be.
Yeah. I think one of the interesting things is that they still advertise it as 100+ games, but last I checked, they're at 340+ games, which definitely means you can't play them all. I mean, there's games, it seems like they're adding them at a rapid pace at this point, and I'm like, I want to play that, I want to play that, I want to play that, and it's like, you don't have the time. It can be a bit overwhelming, but it's such a compliment to the service. I mean, they just added Jedi Fallen Order. I didn't play that the first time around, so I want to play that.
Which that's technically EA Access, so you can still get that outside of Game Pass.
Yeah. Grim Fandango. I think I pronounced that right.
Yep.
Deep Rock Galactic, and Gears Tactics is one I've really been waiting for them to release on Xbox, which they finally did.
I don't know when I'm going to make time for that one, but I'm intrigued by it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think one of the weird things about it, because, I mean, there are those games that I had to go well out of my way, actually, to play After Party because it had caught my interest, and then I got distracted by a different game, and I wanted to get back to it, and they announced that it was going to be leaving the console, so I quickly, ran through a playthrough. I would have liked to have given it a second run through, but I wasn't going to have the time to do it, which I'll talk about that a little bit later with my criticisms of Game Pass. While as minor as they are, there are some, but there's just so many games that come out. It's almost like the service is too good, which isn't a thing. I mean, realistically, it allows everybody to find something they want to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And which is really crazy about that is they're, like I was saying before, their first party stuff hasn't really hit yet like we expected to. There's probably it's looking like there's gonna be a possible 3-4 year span where you get Fable, you get the Initiative's new game, you get Elder Scrolls 6 possibly, because that team has grown, so I'm pretty sure they're working on that.
Well, and at
Starfield,
least Starfield, and
Avowed,
from Obsidian.
It might be in that time frame too. I mean, it's. I've been saying it for a while that in 4 years' time, if they're not over 50 million subscribers, I'll be shocked.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of that's going to have to do with how many consoles they get out in the wild. I think that we're too early into this gen to be able to tell, because obviously everything's been selling out. But 6 months from now, if they're readily available or if they're still hard to find, is going to tell, I think, a lot of that story.
Well, and that's where it'll be interesting to really see how a service like xCloud develops.
Yeah.
As far as Game Pass.
Have you messed around with xCloud concerning Game Pass much?
Yeah. I've messed around with it a decent amount. I actually need to get my screen on my phone fixed. I did get the Kishi.
Oh, did you?
I did get that, but I haven't really messed around with it too much because I want to make sure I get my... It came a lot faster than they quoted. Like, it was supposed to be like 2-3 months out, and then it came a couple weeks later.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, through Amazon, because they were having a sale, so I went ahead and picked it up.
Sure.
So I haven't gotten to mess with that much, but once I upgraded my Wi-Fi router, it runs pretty smooth.
Okay, cool.
I'm excited about it, especially because it's so early in and it's a side service, not a required service.
Right.
I think if they can get to that point where they can stream pretty well without requiring a console or anything like that, or you can play these games in high quality without a console, I think that'll be huge for the service. And as a consumer, having that many subscribers is more of a, that'll help keep costs down.
Well, and I didn't even think to bring that up, so I'm glad you did actually kind of stumble into it. That's also part of this Game Pass service.
Yes.
You know, I mean, you get that just for having Game Pass Ultimate. That's just another bonus feature in regard to it. And I would have done this whole show and had forgotten completely about that, so I'm glad you brought that up. I really feel like, to me personally, I think that particular part of the service is really going to take off when it's something that's like an app on a TV. When people can just access it that quickly. And of course, gamers on the go for sure. But I think, you know, if a kid that's parents doesn't want to buy them a console can say, hey, we can put this app on your TV and it only costs you, you know, under $15 a month. There's going to be a lot of parents who are going to take advantage of that.
I mean, our parents were pretty much, even though we did actually have the console, but because in a way it was a bit cheaper and more convenient with the Sega channel, our parents ended up buying that just out of convenience and probably paying I want to say a similar price, if not more, for that time frame.
So from what I remember about Sega Channel was because when I grew up, I mean, we didn't buy games. We were a very rent-heavy household.
Yeah.
My parents didn't want to buy the $50 cartridge that they assumed we'd get bored of.
Which was nearly $100 back then.
Yeah.
I don't blame them.
It was a lot of Blockbuster when I was a kid, and with Sega, when Sega did the Sega Channel, for those kids out there who are listening that don't know what that is, it was way ahead of its time. Sega Channel was, I think, $12.99 a month.
Okay.
Which, when you think about it, is an incredible deal even back then. But you think about it now, and it's like, wow, I can't believe they actually managed to put that together. But it was essentially Game Pass in the way that they fed in somewhere around 30 games a month, which at the time was a lot of games. And you would hook it up to your cable service, and it would send a game directly to your Sega Genesis console.
And the insane thing, when you really think about it, is it was cable internet before cable internet.
Yep. Yeah, it was way ahead of its time. And it was really cool. Unfortunately, it didn't do well enough to continue over time. But
well, it came out at the end of that console's life.
Exactly. It wasn't something they were able to continue going with the next system, which was the Sega Saturn, and we all know how that turned out. Anyways, no, I mean, really, it really was kind of the precursor for a thing like Game Pass. And, you know, I mean, I think a lot of people forget that Sega did a lot to innovate. They just kind of shot themselves in the foot.
Shot themselves in the foot with their strategy a lot.
Yes.
And in some ways may have done a few things too early.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. But in this case, I mean, this is the perfect time. We are in the era of Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus and Apple TV and all of these different avenues. So it only makes sense to have a game service that goes along those lines. I just didn't think they'd be able to pull it off the way that they have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where it's smart is even if you do have a few issues with xCloud, it's an addition. It's not the only thing you can do, where people have had trouble with Stadia and Amazon's launching Luna, or I guess I think they already have. I don't keep up with it much, but it's an addition. So if it has moments where it has hiccups and it doesn't work great, it's just another thing you can use. It's not.
And I think eventually, as long as the support seems to be there, it will get there.
Yeah, I think it'll get there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It basically it buys them time, but I gotta imagine it's a huge focus for that company to get it to where it works flawlessly.
Yep. And I'm in the iOS camp, so I'm just waiting.
So, I mean, that's where you can see a lot of the people when these new Bethesda games and different things do come out, they're just like, oh, I'll download the app or buy the stick thing, and I'll just pay for Game Pass and play my PlayStation.
I mean, it's a heck of a deal. Recently, there was at least a blurb in an article saying that Sony is looking at something along those lines. You know, I'm not going to lie. If I can access a Sony app easily without having to buy a PlayStation 5, you better believe I mean, it's why not? Why not take advantage of these things? It's a great time to be someone who plays video games as a hobby. So let's move on from that and talk about criticisms of the service. Now, we talked about in the beginning how there was a lack of games that weren't already part of Xbox, you know, games with gold. Do you have any criticisms right now?
The only criticism I'd have, and I'd say it's a criticism of Xbox that predates even Game Pass, is that Xbox, especially compared to PlayStation, doesn't do a good job of picking up those like crazy games that come out of nowhere and just like take the internet by storm.
You're talking about Fall Guys, aren't you?
I'm talking about Fall Guys, but I'm also I mean Rocket League.
Yes,
I mean that hit PlayStation and it blew up. I don't think they've done a good enough job finding those titles that are just like
community inspiring titles.
Yeah, that just really blow up.
Yeah, because I really would like to play Fall Guys.
Yeah, and I do have a little bit of a solution possibly for that. Is instead of like just being like, oh, hire people that are specialties in that. Devolver Digital is a smaller publisher. They also publish Small Guys.
Yep.
Or Fall Guys.
Good enough.
Oh well. Why not just maybe make a deal where they give them a little money to help? Because that's a company that definitely doesn't want to be bought out. They want to stay independent, and I want them to stay independent. Why not maybe cut them a deal where games hit Game Pass day one, where they have less of a risk?
Yeah.
And things hit the service day one. Almost all titles for like 2 or 3 years.
Like scouts for sports.
Yeah.
You know, hey, we've got this game coming up. We think you're gonna, it's gonna be a thing that's gonna blow up. Check it out. Do you want it on Game Pass?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how the workings of that would go, but I think that if they are going to get somebody to scout some games for them, I mean, obviously Devolver Digital,
they find the weirdest titles that are strangely appealing.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
and they've already had some of their games hit Game Pass pretty early.
They have, and that's the thing. I was going to say they already worked with them some, and it's it really is. I mean, that could be a whole other topic, but Devolver Digital is just it's a fun company. It seems like they're very good natured.
Really give them a lot of those weird titles that Game Pass is lacking.
Yeah, well, I think they're a bit of a goofy company. I mean, if you've seen any of their press releases or things like that, or the fact that they used to they had a booth in the E3 parking lot, but they weren't officially part of E3.
Yeah,
Or maybe it was the parking lot across the street.
They're really smart
but
with how they work. And when E3 was canceled, they basically made their booth into a video game anyways that you could run around in. I mean, to me, it seems like, as much as that might seem like, how do you make that happen? That seems weird. They made EA Play happen.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to overthink that stuff because they do make weird things happen right now.
Any other criticisms?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Mine is so very minor, and it kind of deals with what we were talking about earlier, where there's just so many games and not enough time to play them. Mm-hmm. I would think that Microsoft has a time frame when they put a game on the service, like already set, of we've got Red Dead Redemption 2 for 4 months. You know, pencil that into your calendar. I would like to see that when a game launches, like, hey, this game's going to be available from this time to this time.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any deterring reason why they wouldn't want to do that, but to me it would make sense. That way I know I can prioritize games that I want to play.
That doesn't make sense. The only thing I can think of is maybe the publisher or developer doesn't want you knowing, so you blow through the game and discourage you from buying it possibly later on.
And that I could see, because I mean the thing is that's another feature of the service is if you buy it while it's on Game Pass and you're a member, you get a discount on it.
Yeah.
And that discount ranges anywhere from, I think 20% to
50.
70.
Yeah.
So
I think it's normally at least 20.
Right.
I want to say.
Yeah. So I mean it's just another perk of being part of the system. But I would like to see that, only because it's not that I don't want to play those games at that time. It's just that sometimes I'm already in a game and, I don't want to pivot to something else. But if I knew, and they do a decent job of giving you a, hey, in 2 weeks, this game's going to be leaving
I think
Game
usually
Pass.
They do it around a month.
Is it a month? Okay.
I think so.
So, I mean, they do kind of give you notice, but if you are, a parent, or if you're working, or if you're in school, or whatever you've got going on, sometimes trying to fit even just like a 25-hour game into a month isn't always the easiest thing to do.
No, it's not.
So it would be nice to have that. That is my only complaint. That's the only thing that I could come up when when you asked for criticisms. That was all I had.
That's one of the, not fully on topic, but I have wondered how long that EA Play deal is for.
I wondered that as well. Yeah.
I gotta think, because some people are like, I bet it's a year, and I'm like, I gotta imagine it's more than that, because unless Microsoft just gave them a ton of money for that 1 year, those subscriptions were canceled.
Yeah.
They would have to hope that they gain them back after a year.
I would be surprised if it's under 5 years.
Yeah,
personally.
I agree.
Or at least the lifespan, maybe even of the Xbox Series X.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think they had to make a deal where they paid them just above what they tend to make or something like that for several years. Because
even if they paid what they make,
just to make it simple.
like if they just bought everybody's subscription for the yearly cost, so they weren't paying $5 a month, on average for whatever they were paying, the $350 or whatever it comes out to. I don't know. That's a good question.
I can't imagine it's a 1 year deal, because that would seem like a huge lose for EA.
Yeah.
Getting all those subscriptions canceled and then trying to gain them right back, because they probably wouldn't.
I wouldn't think so, because you could, again, they're not day and date, so it's not quite as enticing. Quite honestly, if they were to do $5 a month, and I knew that when Madden dropped, I'd get Madden. When Mass Effect dropped, I'd get Mass Effect. I would be more likely to go ahead and subscribe to it even outside of Game Pass.
Yeah.
But the thing is realistically, Madden hits in July, August, and then if you do get it, you get it after the NFL season is over on EA Access, which as a passive thing isn't bad. But
I think they normally actually release them around the Super Bowl.
Is that when it?
Yeah, I think it's around February.
It's when the season's roughly over.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like right as the hype for the season dies down, it's like it's at its peak, but then it's just
I guess it depends on your team in some ways.
Yeah, that's true too. But that's all I'm trying to say, is that it's not like Star Wars Battlefront 3 is going to drop on the platform.
Yeah.
But you do also get discounts if you have the access to it and you buy the game. You also have perks like game preview and things like that with EA Access.
Yeah, where you can play Squadrons before you buy it.
Yep.
Yep.
So what do you see for the future? And we'll wrap it up after that. anything upcoming? Have you heard anything, seen anything, want anything?
Oh, I want Fable, of course. I mean, but I want them to take their time.
That's a guarantee. I mean, like, is there any feature lacking that you would like to see them add to the service, or anything that you would change?
I think, like Phil said, I would like to see more family games added.
Okay, yeah.
Especially as we have growing families and things like that. That would be an added plus. Not a necessity, but an added plus.
Okay. I don't have anything that I see that it's lacking that I feel like they need. I will say that there was a blurb in an article recently saying that Phil kind of alluded to a platinum status service, in which case they would incorporate, maybe some sort of hardware upgrade program. Is that something that would interest you, or do you think that right now you're just good with what you've got?
Maybe going into the next console, because to me that might be good for people that don't have it, but for me, or like the Series X already, which I'll have it before they would do anything like that, I would hope, but it doesn't that's no real incentive for someone like me right now.
And that's kind of what I'm curious. It would
that doesn't mean it's a bad idea.
Right. I'd like to know the details of something like that. Like, I mean, do you pay $5 extra a month, and then when a new console drops, you just go trade in your old one?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Similar. So.
Yeah. And then it just becomes a question of the math of it. How much are you, like, if you're, I mean, realistically, if you're paying that extra $5 a month and then it times in perfectly where, say, you hit a cap and you've paid for your next console, you just go pick it up when the time comes, that's not a bad deal. It's kind of like paying out over time for a system without having any risk of it.
Yeah.
But, who knows? I don't know what that's going to be. But I do know that was mentioned, so I thought I'd bring that up.
So, something I just thought of, because people do love them, maybe if they put that new AEW wrestling game on it.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Because they don't have a wrestling game
No Mercy
currently, and it would introduce that game to a large audience day one, which I'm sure AEW would really want.
Oh, yeah. And they've got money backing them, so I think that would only be of a benefit. But, I mean, that's a very specific want. Yeah. I don't know. I'm anxious to see what's coming. This time of the year, just as a PSA for those who have made it this far through the show with us, we're in the holiday season, and you can find it for cheap. I've seen several deals coming up where it's, I think, $22.99 US.
That seems to be the common one.
For 3 months.
GameStop had it for $20, but you got to go in store and you only get one. So right. I would stick with online.
Yeah, but if you're doing that, I mean, you're looking at, under $100 for a year's worth of the service, and I mean, like, for what you're getting with it is an incredible value.
Oh, absolutely.
It really is the best deal in video games.
Yep, for sure. Before we go, we'd like to thank those who helped contribute to the show. Zero XP logo was provided by Jameson Johns. You can find him at behance.net/Jameson Johns. Music provided by Odd Reference. You can find him at facebook.com/odd.reference. If you're on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Using these features lets YouTube know that you enjoy our content and help Xbox and Fable fans find us.
And as always, before we go, we'd like to give thanks to those who have inspired us to do this show. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Damien. Thank you, Mike. And until next time, just stay safe out there. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Xbox is the king of RPGs.
Bye-bye.